Hi, Mike. You got to take your mute off.
Hey, Hare Krishna.
Hey, how you doing?
No, not too bad. How was your day?
Pretty good. I just finished another chapter, 3 hours and 47-minute long. It's the second time, well, the first time Raghunath Das Goswami met Lord Chaitanya. That devotee, that Lord Raghunath Das, he was very, very renounced. He used to, he came from a very rich family, but Lord Chaitanya's instructions was that you should be the example of renunciation. So when he came to Jagannath Puri, he started, hanging out near the Nishringa, the Garuda Stamba, which is a place kind of like the entrance where beggars go and they get food from the servants who would go in and out. But then he stopped doing that and he went to like the begging chatras, like a place where they hand out food to, mendicants. And then he stopped doing that. And well, when Lord Chaitanya found out that he was doing that, he was so pleased that he gave him a Govardhan Shila, like a little stone from Govardhan Hill. That still exists. It's on the cover of the Srimana Shiksha by Raghunath Das that ISKCON put out, and a necklace of gunja, like small conch shells. And Lord Chaitanya was very attached to these two things, and he told him to worship that Govardhan Shila stone because it's non-different from Krishna. And whenever Raghunath worshipped the stone, he would see Krishna in that stone. And then he decided, he's not even going to get food from the begging places. But after 2 or 3 days, if they haven't sold the rice and other Jagannath Prasadam that they put out for people to sell to people, then they just throw it out and to the cows. And so Raghunath Das would take that discarded rice, which was so bad, it was like got such a rotten smell to it that the cows wouldn't even eat it. And so he would wash it off very carefully and then eat the hard inner part of the rice. And Lord Chaitanya found out about this and he said, "You're eating such nice prasadam," and he grabbed it and he started eating it, but he was so pleased with his renunciation, But anyway, I can't imagine being that renounced. Here I am living high on the hog, I have everything I want. I complain about the kind of ice cream we have at night, just as a joke. Yeah, we have it so terrible here. Now we're going to have this like chocolate peanut butter ice cream we have all the time. Yeah, I'm just going to go live in the forest. But so now we're starting in chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge. Oh wait, okay.
Following is a free for download.
Hold on a second.
Available on Google Drive.
I don't know why this.
Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya-lila, Chapter 5. How Padumna Mishra received instructions from.
All of a sudden it's just started. I don't know why that did that. Okay, so Transcendental Knowledge. I'll just start out, I guess. Text 1. Shri Bhagavan-vacha, Imam Vishwasate Yogam Yogpraptavan Aham Aviyam, Vivishwan Manave Prabha Manur Ikshvakave Bravit. Synonyms. Shri Bhagavan-vacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, Imam, this, Vishwasate, unto the Sun God, Yogam, the science of one's relationship to the Supreme, Proktavam, instructed Aham, I, Aviyam, imperishable, Vivishwan, the Sun God's name. Manave, unto the father of mankind of the name of Vivashvata, Manu. That's where the name man comes from, the one of the Manus. Praha told Manu, the father of mankind, Ikshvakave, unto King Ikshvaku or Bravit, said. Translation, the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god, Vivishwan, and Vivishwan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind. And Manu, in turn, instructed it to Ikshvaku. You read the first paragraph.
Sure. Purport. Herein we find the history of the Bhagavad-gītā traced from a remote time when it was delivered to the royal order of all planets, beginning from the sun planet. The kings of all planets are especially meant for the protection of the inhabitants, and therefore the royal order should understand the science of Bhagavad-gītā in order to be able to rule the citizens and protect them from material bondage to lust. Human life is meant for cultivation of spiritual knowledge, an eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the executive heads of all states and all planets are obliged to impart this lesson to the citizens by education, culture, and devotion. In other words, the executive heads of all states are intended to spread the science of Krishna consciousness so that the people may take advantage of this great science and pursue a successful path, utilizing the opportunity of the human form of life.
In this millennia, the sun god is known as Vivishwan, the king of the sun, which is the origin of all planets within the solar system. In the Brahma Samhita 552, it is stated, Yat Śikṣāṣtaka Sabhita Sakala Grahanam Raja Samastasura Murti Ashesha Teja Yasyagnaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govinda Madi Prushanam Tamam Bhajami. Quote, let me worship, end quote, Lord Brahma said, quote, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, Krishna, who is the original person, and under whose order the sun, which is the king of all planets, is assuming immense power and heat. The sun represents the eye of the Lord and traverses its orbit in obedience to his order, end quote. Go ahead.
The sun is the king of the planets, and the sun god, at the present of the name of Vivishwan, rules the sun planet, which is controlling all the other planets by supplying heat and light. He is rotating under the order of Krishna, and Lord Krishna originally made Vivishwan his first disciple to understand the science of Bhagavad-gītā. The Gita is not, therefore, a speculative treatise for the insignificant mundane scholar, but is a standard book of knowledge coming down from time immemorial.
In the Mahabharata, Shanti Parva 348, 52, 51, and 2, we can trace out the history of the Gita as follows. Treta Yugado Chatato Vivishwan Manavedado Manuscha Lokabritya Tam Sutye Ikshvakave Ikshvakuna Chakatito Vyapya Lokanavastita. Quote, in the beginning of the millennium, known as Treta Yuga, this science of the relationship of the Supreme was delivered by Vivishwan to Manu. Manu, being the father of mankind, gave it to his son, Maharaj Ikshvaku, the king of this earth planet and forefather of the Raghu dynasty in which Lord Ramchandra appeared, end quote. Therefore, Bhagavad-gītā extended in human society from the time of Maharaj Ikshvaku. Go ahead and read the next one.
At the present moment, we have just passed through 5,000 years of the Kali Yuga, which lasts 432,000 years. Before this, there was the Varpa Yuga, 800,000 years. And before that, there was Tretra Yuga, 1,200,000 years. Thus, some 2,005,000 years ago, Manu spoke the Bhagavad-gītā to his disciple and son, Maharaj Ikshvaku, the king of this planet Earth. The age of the current Manu is calculated to last some 305,300,000 years, of which 120,400,000 have passed. Accepting that before the birth of Manu, the Gita was spoken by the Lord to his disciple, the sun god Vivishwan, a rough estimate is the Gita was spoken at least 120,400,000 years ago. In human society, it has been extant for 2 million years. It was respoken by the Lord again to Arjuna about 5,000 years ago. That is the rough estimate of the history of the Gita, according to the Gita itself, and according to the version of the speaker, Lord Sri Krishna. It was spoken to the sun god Vivishwan because he is also a Kshatriya and is the father of all Kshatriyas who are descendants of the sun god, or the Surya Vamsha Kshatriyas. Because Bhagavad-gītā is as good as the Vedas, being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this knowledge is aparushaya, superhuman. Since the Vedic instructions are accepted as they are without human interpretation, the Gita must therefore be accepted without mundane interpretation. The mundane wranglers may speculate on the Gita in their own ways, but that is not Bhagavad-gītā as it is. Therefore, Bhagavad-gītā has to be accepted as it is from the disciplic succession, and it is described herein that the Lord spoke to the sun god spoke to his son Manu, and Manu spoke to his son Ikshvaku.
Now, when you hear this historical analysis or chronological history of when and where the Gita was spoken, you know, there might be some skeptics who say, well, sun god, give me a break. Nobody can live on the sun. But when you see the disciplic succession and you hear the history of it, you can tell these are real personalities and this is the way it was handed down. You know, it's just a matter of listening to the Vedic evidence, which is called Shabda Brahman, which is the knowledge gathered by hearing. You can't understand what is beyond even your own eyelids if your eyes are closed. And you can't understand what's going on in this material universe unless you actually, even with your powerful telescopes, they're still faulty. So, they don't even know what's going on within this universe. Like only a couple decades ago, they estimated the mass and the width of the universe to be something completely different from what they estimate now. So they're always like, Prabhupada said that they're always wrong. That was his conclusion. They keep updating their theories and their calculations, but that means they don't know the truth. They're just speculating, and they're depending on their empirical data received from their faulty instruments, the eyes, and you can't even understand the absolute truth in that way. It has to be coming down from the source of all knowledge, who is Krishna, and the Vedas are like the mother. And so if you want to know who your father is, you just have to ask your mother. That's the only way to know. Otherwise, you can't know it. And you have to be submissive too. And if you're not submissive, if you like listen in a challenging attitude, that also bars you from understanding this science. And it is a science, and it's got all kinds of evidence. All you have to do is be open to listening to it submissively. Text 2, Evam parampara praptam imam jarshio vidu sakale nenha mahata yoganashta parantapa. Synonyms. Evam, thus, parampara, by disciplic succession, praptam, received, imam, this science. Raja Rishaya, the saintly kings, vidu, understood, saw that knowledge, kalena, in the course of time, iha, in this world, mahata, great, yoga, the science of one's relationship with the supreme, nasta, scattered, paramtapa, O Arjuna, subduer of the enemies. Translation, this supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. Go ahead and read the purport.
Purport. It is clearly stated that the Gita was especially meant for the saintly kings because they were to execute its purpose in ruling over the citizens. Certainly, Bhagavad-gītā was never meant for the demonic persons who would dissipate its value for no one's benefit, would devise all types of interpretations according to personal whims. As soon as the original purpose was scattered by the motives of the unscrupulous commentators, there arose the need to reestablish the disciplic succession. 5,000 years ago, it was detected by the Lord himself that the disciplic succession was broken, and therefore he declared that the purpose of the Gita appeared to be lost. In the same way, at the present moment also, there are so many editions of the Gita, especially in English, but almost all of them are not according to the authorized disciplic succession. There are innumerable interpretations rendered by different mundane scholars, but almost all of them do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, although they make a good business on the words of Sri Krishna. The spirit is demonic, because demons do not believe in God, but simply enjoy the property of the Supreme. Since there is a great need of an edition of the Gita in English, as it is received by the Parampara disciplic succession system, an attempt is made herewith to fulfill this great want. Bhagavad-gītā, accepted as it is a great boon to humanity. But if it is accepted as a treatise of philosophical speculations, it is simply a waste of time.
Yeah, so many different versions, and none of them really touch the actual essence of the Bhagavad-gītā as it is. That's what I say in the beginning of, at the top of the little advertisement I have for, it says here, what we are spreading is Krishna consciousness. That is Bhagavad-gītā. It's not that we've manufactured anything. So you can manufacture so many things out of the factory of your tiny brain, but that doesn't mean it has anything to do with Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is coming down through disciplic succession as it is. And if you try to monkey around with it, like Shankaracharya and the Mayavadis did, it'll simply cloud the real meaning. That's why Lord Chaitanya, when he was listening to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and his Vedanta Sutra for 7 days, he would just sit there listening. And Sarvabhauma asked him, well, have you understood? He said, I understand the Vedanta very clearly, but your interpretation, I cannot understand. He said, well, if you have your own interpretation, let's hear it. And so he explained the Bhagavad-gītā. It's just like, or the Vedanta Sutra is just like the sun. If you put your own interpretations on it, like Shankaracharya did, it simply clouds the brilliant message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we have to see through, we have to see it as it is. Otherwise, if we put in our own mundane interpretation on it, or if we listen to anybody's opinion or whatever, it's not really Bhagavad-gītā as it is. It's Bhagavad-gītā as it is. It's as clear as day, and will shine by itself when we receive it from the mouth of a devotee in the disciplic succession that is repeating exactly the way he heard it and the way it's coming off the page.
So
That's
one thing that always kind of, I don't know, maybe troubled is the wrong word, but about this verse is so like, the idea that the message in the disciplic succession was distorted and the message got broken. But yet so often, like, we rely on the disciplic succession as our means of gaining knowledge. And like, so I've always wondered, like, if it was able to be broken before, how can we be sure that it's not broken again?
It will be broken again. It says that Lord Chaitanya's movement will last for another 10,000 years. But then after that, all the religious principles will be deteriorated and they'll actually go down to nil. And at that time, people will be just like human, Dewey-pod, just like two-legged animals. And they won't understand the Vedic principles because there's no representative on this planet and nobody's listening to it. I mean, most of the people are not interested in Krishna consciousness now, and therefore there's a need to propagate it. But Prabhupada said if there's just 1% of the population became Krishna conscious, then it would revolutionize the entire world. So we have to try as best we can to carry on this message, but the devotees are the only ones that carry it. If the devotees don't preach this message, who's going to? Nobody. So that's the way disciplic succession is broken. When there's nobody that's preaching, nobody's interested in Krishna consciousness, and everybody just goes on with their sense gratification, is just like eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And then where's the Krishna? He's not on the earth because he's only there with when his devotees are glorifying him. Just like it says in the Bible, where there are two or more of them, there I am in my name, there I am in the midst of them. So when nobody's chanting Hare Krishna, nobody's reading the Shastra, then the disciplic succession is broken because nobody's repeating it. And so that's it. That happened, 5,000 years ago when Krishna was on the planet, and Bhagavad-gītā was spoken. Krishna made Arjuna the first, the authority on the Bhagavad-gītā. He wanted him to be the authority so he could, start a new parampara disciplic succession. And then, 4,500 years later, all the pastimes and pastime places of Krishna were forgotten, and they were covered over by the influence of time. And so Lord Chaitanya came, and he is in the role of devotee because nobody really understood what Krishna meant by surrender. And so Krishna played the part of a devotee and said, this is how you surrender. It's like a teacher taking the pencil and going, Okay, you make A, B, C, and write for the student by holding his hand. So Lord Chaitanya taught everybody how to surrender to Krishna, and he told the Goswamis to excavate all the holy places in Vrindavan and renovate the Vedic principles based on the previous scriptures. And so they did that and made a conclusive Siddhanta, or the conclusive truth based on Vedic authority. Vedic authority never dies, but it can be covered over when human society ignores it. So the Goswamis wrote tons of books. I mean, between Rupa and Jiva and Sanatana Goswami, they renovated the Vedic, especially Lord Chaitanya's followers, gave the highest understanding of Dharma that you could possibly get, which no incarnation had ever offered before. The sublime rasa of Madhurya Rasa, that was never on any other philosophy, even in Vedas. Even Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya, all these other acharyas and previous to Lord Chaitanya did not present that, sublime mellow of, Madhurya Rasa, which is actually the highest form of love of Godhead. So they put all that down in writing in a science. And Rupa Goswami, that's why we're followers of Rupa Goswami, because Rupa Goswami actually delineated all these characteristics of the relationship of Krishna and all these moods and the science in humans and human beings' character of how a real devotee interacts with Krishna, and gave the impetuses in order to and chalked out a method by which to realize that platform. By following in the footsteps of Rupa Goswami, we can actually attain the same position that all these high devotees have attained throughout history, especially Lord Chaitanya's followers. They were completely madly in love with Krishna. Raghunath Das Goswami was, he was completely, when Lord Chaitanya gave him that stone and those gunja shells, and he thought of how Lord Chaitanya was so kind to him, he gave him those things which were so dear to him, he would just go crazy. It was so much, so grateful and like unlimited bliss. So that's how they lived. And every day, and they would only they'd eat and sleep so little, like a couple hours, an hour and a half, sometimes not even that, but they would just chant Hare Krishna all day and wander around Vrindavan calling out for Krishna and Radharani. And that's how they lived their whole life. So we have to follow in their footsteps because it's a very personal process. We have to follow in the footsteps and remember these personalities very clearly, because these are our disciplic succession. In order for the disciplic succession to stay intact, we, as the current torchbearers, if you want to say, of the disciplic succession, have to carry on the message as it is. That's what Prabhupada did when he came here and wrote all these books. He was presenting exactly the same message as Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya said, you preach the Bhagavad-gītā and Srimad Bhagavatam, become a guru and try to liberate everyone in the land. And so if we do that and present exactly the way the previous disciplic succession did it, we're carrying on the disciplic succession, because nobody else is going to do it. I mean, Lord Chaitanya could spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, but how many people could he reach? He said, I have all these fruits of love of Godhead, but I'm only one person. So you go out and you distribute this fruit of love of God. And so he gave an order. So on his order, we're trying to carry on. That's basically the sum and substance of the mission of Lord Chaitanya. I'll just read the Sanskrit and translation. You can read the purport. Did we? Yeah, I'll read the Sanskrit. Isaiva yam maya tedya yoga prokta parantana bhaktosi me sakacheti rahasyam eterutamam. Synonyms: Sa, the same; eva, certainly; I am this; maya, by me; te, unto you; adya, today; yoga, the science of yoga; prokta, spoken; parantana, very old; bhakta, devotee; asi, you are; me, my; shaka, friend; cha, also; iti, therefore; rahasyam, mystery; he, certainly; etat, this; uttamam, transcendental. Translation: that very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. That's what it says about Lord Chaitanya. There's one verse by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya who says, he reestablished the process of yoga or religion, which is very old and was almost gone. Lord Chaitanya reestablished that science. And so, that has to happen every once in a while. I hope that answers your question about the disciplic succession. Go ahead and read the purport.
Purport. There are two classes of men, namely the devotee and the demon. The Lord selected Arjuna as the recipient of this great science owing to his being a devotee of the Lord. But for the demon, it is not possible to understand this great mysterious science. There are a number of editions of this great book of knowledge. Some of them have commentaries by the devotees, and some of them have commentaries by the demons. Commentation by the devotees is real, whereas that of the demons is useless. Arjuna accepts Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and any commentary on the Gita, following in the footsteps of Arjuna, is real devotional service to the cause of this great science. The demonic, however, do not accept Lord Krishna as he is. Instead, they concoct something about Krishna and mislead general readers from the path of Krishna's instructions. Here is a warning about such misleading paths. One should try to follow the disciplic succession from Arjuna, and thus be benefited by this great science of Srimad Bhagavad-gītā.
Yeah, so Arjuna started this whole disciplic succession by hearing from Krishna on the battlefield. Well, why don't you go ahead and read the Sanskrit as well?
Arjuna uvacha, aparam bhavato janma, param janma vivasvataha, katam etad vijaniyam tvamadu profan ite. Arjuna uvacha, Arjuna said, aparam, junior, bhavata, your, janma, birth, param, superior, janma, birth, vivasvata, of the sun god, katam, how, etat, this, vijaniyam, shall I understand, tvam, you, ado, in the beginning, proktavan, instructed, iti, thus. Translation. Arjuna said, the sun god Vivishvan is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed this science to him?
Purport: Arjuna is an accepted devotee of the Lord, so how could he not believe Krishna's words? The fact is that Arjuna is not inquiring from himself, but for those who do not believe in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or for the demons who do not like the idea that Krishna should be accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For them only, Arjuna inquires on this point, as if he were himself not aware of the personality of Godhead or Krishna. As it will be evident from the 10th chapter, Arjuna knew perfectly well that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the fountainhead of everything, and the last word in transcendence. Of course, Krishna also appeared as a son of Devaki on this earth. How Krishna remained the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, the eternal original person, is very difficult for an ordinary man to understand. Therefore, to clarify this point, Arjuna put this question before Krishna so that he himself could speak authoritatively. That Krishna is the supreme authority is accepted by the whole world, not only at present, but from time immemorial, and the demons alone reject him. Anyway, since Krishna is the authority accepted by all, Arjuna put this question before him in order that Krishna would describe himself without being depicted by the demons, who always try to distort him in a way understandable to the demons and their followers. It is necessary that everyone, for his own interest, know the science of Krishna. Therefore, when Krishna himself speaks about himself, it's auspicious for all the worlds. To the demons, such explanations by Krishna himself may appear to be very strange, because the demons always study Krishna from their own standpoint. But those who are devotees heartily welcome the statements of Krishna when they are spoken by Krishna himself. That's why it's so important that the Gita is one of the quintessential essence of the Vedas, because it was spoken by Krishna himself. Devotees always worship such authoritative statements of Krishna because they are always eager to know more and more about him. The atheists who consider Krishna an ordinary man may in this way come to know that Krishna is superhuman, that he is Satchidananda Vigraha, the eternal form of bliss and knowledge, that he's transcendental, that he's above the domination of the material modes of nature and above the influence of time and space. A devotee of Krishna, like Arjuna, is undoubtedly above any misunderstanding of the transcendental position of Krishna. Arjuna is putting this question before the Lord as simply an attempt by the devotee to defy the atheistic attitudes of persons who consider Krishna to be an ordinary human being subject to the modes of material nature. Go ahead.
Text 5. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava karjuna. Tani aham veda sarvani natvam veta parantapa. Synonyms. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, Bahuni, many, me of mine, vyatitani have passed, janmani, births, tava, of yours, cha, and also, Arjuna, O Arjuna, tani, those, aham, I, veda, do know, sarvani, all, na, not, tvam, you, veta, no, param tapa, O subduer of the enemy. Translation. The personality of Godhead said, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy.
Purport. In the Brahma Samhita 533, we have information of many, many incarnations of the Lord. It is stated there, Advaitam Achyutam Anadimanantarupam Adhyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Videsha Durlabam Adurlabam Atmabhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamham Jami. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, Krishna, who is the original person, absolute, infallible, without beginning. Although expanded into unlimited forms, he is still the same original, the oldest, and the person always appearing as a fresh youth. Such eternal, blissful, all-knowing forms of the Lord are usually not understood by even the best Vedic scholars, but they're always manifest to pure, unalloyed devotees. Go ahead and read the next paragraph.
It is also stated in Brahma Samhita 539, Ramadi Murtishu Kala Niyamena Tishtan Nanavataram Akurad Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Svayam Sambhavat Parama Pumanyo Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, Krishna, who is always situated in various incarnations, such as Rama, Nrsimha, many sub-incarnations as well, but who is the original personality of Godhead, known as Krishna, and who incarnates personally also.
Yeah, Swayam Bhagavan means the original personality of Godhead. Like, the original candle, he incarnates, he has sub-incarnations, but the original candle lights another candle that has the same candle power as the original. But there is only one original candle, and that would be Krishna. In the Vedas also it is said that the Lord, although one without a second, manifests himself in innumerable forms. He is like the Vaidurya stone, which changes color yet still remains one. All these multi-forms are understood by the pure, unalloyed devotees, but not by a simple study of the Vedas. Vedeshu durlabam or durlabam atmabhakto. But devotees like Arjuna are constant companions of the Lord, and whenever the Lord incarnates, the associate devotees also incarnate in order to serve the Lord in different capacities. Arjuna is one of these devotees, and it is in this verse that is understood that some millions of years ago, when Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad-gītā to the sun god Vivishwan, Arjuna, in a different capacity, was also present. But the difference between the Lord and Arjuna is that the Lord remembered the incident, whereas Arjuna could not remember. That's a difference between the part and parcel living entity and the Supreme Lord. Although Arjuna is addressed herein as the mighty hero who could subdue the enemy, he is unable to recall what happened in his various past births. Therefore, a living entity, however great he may be in the material estimation, can never equal the Supreme Lord. Anyone who is a constant companion of the Lord is certainly a liberated person, but he cannot be equal to the Lord. The Lord is described in the Brahma Samhita as infallible, achyuta, which means that he never forgets himself, even though he's in material contact. Therefore, the Lord and the living entity can never be equal in all respects, even if the living entity is as liberated as Arjuna. Although Arjuna is a devotee of the Lord, He sometimes forgets the nature of the Lord, but by the divine grace, a devotee can at once understand the infallible condition of the Lord, whereas a non-devotee or a demon cannot understand this transcendental nature. Consequently, these descriptions in the Gita cannot be understood by demonic brains. Krishna remembered acts which were performed by him millions of years before, but Arjuna could not, despite the fact that both Krishna and Arjuna are eternal in nature. We may also note herein that a living entity forgets everything due to his change of body, but the Lord remembers because he does not change his Satchidananda body. He is a Dvaita, which means there is no distinction between his body and himself. Everything in relation to him is spirit, whereas the conditioned soul is different from the material body. And because the Lord's body and self are identical, his position is always different from that of the ordinary living entity, even when he descends to the material platform. The demons cannot adjust themselves to this transcendental nature of the Lord, which the Lord himself explains in the following verse. Go ahead.
Ajopi san avyayatma Bhutanam Ishvara Pisan Prakritim Sva Adishtaya Sambhavami Atma Mayaya. Synonyms. Aja, unborn, api, although, son, being so, avyaya, without deterioration, atma, body, bhutanam, of all those who are born, Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, api, although, son, being so, prakritam, in the transcendental form, svam, of myself, adhistaya, being so situated, sambhavami, I do incarnate, atma mayaya, by my internal energy. Translation. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form.
Okay, go. This is a long paragraph, but you can read it.
Okay, purport. The Lord has spoken about the Lord has spoken about the peculiarity of his birth. Although he may appear like an ordinary person, he remembers everything of his many, many past births, whereas a common man cannot remember what he has done even a few hours before. If someone is asked exactly what he did at the same time one day earlier, it would be very difficult for a common man to answer immediately. He would surely have to dredge his memory to recall what he was doing exactly at that same time one day before. And yet, men often dare claim to be God or Krishna. One should not be misled by such meaningless claims. Then again, the Lord explains his prakriti, or his form. Prakriti means nature, as well as svarupa, or one's own form. The Lord says that he appears in his own body. He does not change his body as the common living entity changes from one body to another. The conditioned soul may have one kind of body in the present birth, but he has a different body in the next birth. In the material world, the living entity has no fixed body, but transmigrates from one body to another. The Lord, however, does not do so. Whenever he appears, he does so in the same original body by his internal potency. In other words, Krishna appears in the material world in his original eternal form with two hands holding a flute. He appears exactly in his eternal body, uncontaminated by this material world. Although he appears in the same transcendental body and is Lord of the universe, it still appears that he takes his birth like an ordinary living entity. And although his body does not deteriorate like a material body, it still appears that Lord Krishna grows from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to youth. But astonishingly enough, he never ages beyond youth. At the time of the Battle of Kurukshetra, he had many grandchildren at home. I lost my place.
It's right
There we go.
near at the top.
Or in other words, he had sufficiently aged by material calculations. Still, he looked just like a young man of 20 or 25 years old. We never see a picture of Krishna in old age because he never grows old like us, although he is the oldest person in the whole creation, past, present, and future. Neither his body nor his intelligence ever deteriorates or changes. Therefore, it is clear that in spite of his being in the material world, he is the same unborn, eternal form of bliss and knowledge, changeless in his transcendental body and intelligence. Factually, his appearance and disappearance are like the sun's rising, moving before us, and then disappearing from our eyesight. When the sun is out of sight, we think that the sun is set. And when the sun is before our eyes, we think that the sun is on the horizon. Actually, The sun is always in its fixed position, but owing to our defective, insufficient senses, we calculate the appearance and disappearance of the sun in the sky. And because Lord Krishna's appearance and disappearance are completely different from that of an ordinary, common living entity, it is evident that he is eternal, blissful knowledge by his eternal potency. And he is never contaminated by material nature. The Vedas also confirm that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unborn, yet he still appears to take his birth in multi-manifestations. The Vedic supplementary literatures also confirm that even though the Lord appears to be taking his birth, he is still without change of body. In the Bhagavatam, he appears before his mother as Narayana, with 4 hands and the decorations of the 6 kinds of full opulences. His appearance in his original eternal form is his causeless mercy bestowed upon the living entities so that they can concentrate on the Supreme Lord as he is, and not on mental concoctions or imaginations, which the impersonalist wrongly thinks the Lord's forms to be. The word Maya, or can you take it up a little bit?
Yeah.
Or Atma Maya, refers to the Lord's causeless mercy, according to the Vishvakosha dictionary. The Lord is conscious of all his previous appearances and disappearances, but a common living entity forgets everything about his past body as soon as he gets another body. He is the Lord of all living entities because he performs wonderful and superhuman activities while he is on this earth. Therefore, the Lord is always the same absolute truth and is without differentiation between his form and self or between his quality and body. A question may now be raised as to why the Lord appears and disappears in this world. This is explained in the next verse.
Yeah, I don't think any other religion actually describes the form of the Lord. That Michelangelo depicts the Lord as being an old man in the sky. You never see Krishna as an old man. You never see it. Prabhupada used to ask, have you ever seen Krishna smoking? Smoking a cigarette? No, he's always happy. He's always, a youthful, and he's Naviyovana, ever youthful. Okay, here's a famous verse here. Text 7, Yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhavati bharata bhutanam dharmasya tadatmanam shrijamiham. Synonyms: yada yada, whenever and wherever. He, certainly. Dharmasya, of religion, glani, discrepancies. Bhavati, become manifested. Bhart, O descendant Bhart. Abhutanam, predominance. Adharmasya, of irreligion. Tada, at that time. Atmanam, self. Sridhami, manifest. Aham, I. Translation: whenever and wherever there is decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bhart, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Okay, I'll just read the first paragraph. You can read the second one. The word Srijami is significant here, and Srijami cannot be used in the sense of creation because, according to the previous verse, there is no creation in the Lord's form or body, since all the forms are eternally existent. Therefore, Srijami means that the Lord manifests himself as he is. Although the Lord appears on schedule, namely at the end of the Dwapara Yuga of the 28th millennium of the 7th Manu and 1 day of Brahma, he has no obligation to adhere to such rules and regulations because he is completely free to act in many ways at his will. He therefore appears by his own will whenever there's a predominance of irreligiosity and a disappearance of true religion. Principles of religion are laid down in the Vedas, and any discrepancy in the matter of properly executing the rules of the Vedas makes one irreligious. In the Bhagavatam is stated that such principles are the laws of the Lord. Only the Lord can manufacture a system of religion. The Vedas are also accepted as originally spoken by the Lord himself to Brahma from within his heart. Therefore, the principles of Dharma or religion are the direct orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dharma tu shakshat bhagavat panitam. These principles are clearly indicated throughout the Bhagavad-gītā. The purpose of the Vedas is to establish such principles under the order of the Supreme Lord, and the Lord directly orders at the end of the Gita that the highest principle of religion is to surrender unto him only, and nothing more. The Vedic principles push one toward complete surrender unto him, and whenever such principles are disturbed by the demoniac, the Lord appears. From the Bhagavatam, we understand that Lord Brahma is the incarnation of Krishna, who appeared when materialism was rampant, and materialists were using the pretext of the authority of the Vedas. Although there were certain restrictive rules and regulations regarding animal sacrifice for particular purposes in the Vedas, people of demonic tendencies still took to animal sacrifice without reference to the Vedic principles. Lord appears, or no one should be accepted as an avatar. Vedic principles. Lord Buddha appeared in order to stop this nonsense and to establish the Vedic principles of nonviolence. That's ahimsa in Sanskrit. Therefore, each and every avatar or incarnation of the Lord has a particular mission, and they're all described in the revealed scriptures. No one should be accepted as an avatar unless he is referred to by the scriptures. It is not a fact that the Lord appears only in Indian soil. He can manifest himself anywhere and everywhere and whenever he desires to appear. In each and every incarnation, he speaks as much about religion as can be understood by the particular people under the particular circumstances. But the mission is the same, to lead people to God consciousness and obedience to the principles of religion. Sometimes he descends personally. Sometimes he sends his bona fide representative in the form of his son or servant or himself in some disguised form. So you gotta like, it just reminds me of that thing, you know, like whenever and wherever he wants, you know, whenever there's a discrepancy in the religious principles, you know, Krishna will appear to annihilate the demons. So it's like they say, you know, don't make me come down there. You know, Krishna will rectify things and you're not going to like it, you know, because the only thing he does is kill the demons, except in Lord Chaitanya's incarnation. He kills their demonic mentality. He doesn't actually kill the demons physically. Go ahead and read the last paragraph, and then we're going to have to end it.
Okay. The principles of the Bhagavad-gītā were spoken to Arjuna, and for that matter, to other highly elevated persons, because he was highly advanced compared to ordinary persons in other parts of the world. 2 + 2 = 4 is a mathematic principle that is true in the beginner's arithmetic class and in the advanced class as well. Still, there are higher and lower mathematics. In all incarnations of the Lord, therefore, the same principles are taught, but they appear to be higher and lower in varied circumstances. The higher principles of religion begin with the acceptance of the 4 orders and the 4 statuses of social life, as will be explained later. The whole purpose of the mission of incarnations is to arouse Krishna consciousness everywhere. Such consciousness is manifest and non-manifest only under different circumstances.
So that's the purpose of the Lord. You know, we have to follow the purpose and try to execute. Our only duty in this world is to serve Krishna, and his serving means serving what he's saying here in the Bhagavad-gītā. Just do what he's telling you to do and instruct others how he's telling you, by example, instruct others to do the same. And then you're doing what he wants. And Krishna says, whoever describes this science to other people, there's no one more dear to me than he. And so that's the ultimate goal of life, you know, to become dear to Krishna and to please him. So we have to execute his instructions that will please him the best. So that's all the devotees do. They don't care about anything else. They don't care about their own agenda. They don't care about anybody else's problems. All they're doing is surrendering to Krishna and following his will and executing his order and advancing his mission on the planet. You know, that's why all the great saints and sages have ever appeared from the beginning of time, just to reestablish religious principles when those principles are disrupted. So I guess we're going to have to end it here. Do you have any other questions or comments?
No.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll talk to you on today's hump day, so it'll be Friday then.
All right.
All right, talk to you later. Mike, thanks a
Krishna.
lot. Appreciate it as always.